Jeff, you gonna start us off? Kyle?
Yeah, I was having trouble finding the little hand icon anyway. So Bailey kind of let out a secret. He thinks that, or he said that you think that this might be Rutgers' best team since Washington's been there. Is
Yeah,
that true?
I do. I mean, the record is better. I gotta watch a little bit more, watching them. But they have Shannon Perry. She used to be a Hawkeye. She's new on staff. Her and her husband used to be at UCLA. So we have, bringing a little bit of stuff from what UCLA runs. But I think the world is Shannon, and I have a great respect for Hawkeyes too. But they're they don't play fast, but they're much more when they run the break. But then when they get into their stuff, they do a nice job. And like all of us, is it takes you a little bit more time. You get down the road, you really figure out how good you are. I'm sure she's trying to figure out the same thing, but they're big. Their guard is 5'8", their point guard. And then their off guard 6'1". Then every other position 6'3". So they're big. They rebound the ball really well. We have been rebounding the ball well, but this will be, another good challenge for us. So yeah, I've been impressed with what I've seen on film.
Kyle?
Yeah, I think, once you get into conference play, you kind of assume that there's going to be some players that you know a little bit about just from years past. And Rutgers has a couple. I think they've got a couple players in their rotation that are back, but a lot of transfers. Just if you've watched them on film, just what players have kind of stood out for them, maybe new players, or if they have some returning ones that
you've seen. The day number 10 for them, she's just kind of a unique guard. She really likes to score it. She's averaging about 18, 2 old boards. She likes, she can rip and drive. She's pretty athletic when she makes her moves. Their point guard, she kind of does, comes down on the point and she'll just really take a 4 feet behind the line 3 on you. So they have different nuances in that break. But then when you get into their system with the back screens and they do their small forward, their power forward, and they're big, they all post up. So that matchup with number 22, her name is Zakara Perkins. She's 6'3". We got to find her in transition because she's just kind of a versatile player, and that's our guards aren't nearly that big, especially if you get Chit Chat back, right? You got Chit Chat, Kylie, and Taylor. So it's their size, but those 2 guards do a really good job. But one that's intriguing me that's coming off the bench, she's a grad kid. Her name is Faith Blackstone, but her points per game usage are crazy. She hasn't played much, but she's shooting 46% overall and about 37% from 3. So those are 3 of the guards, and then the bigs, they're just going to be a little different because they're go at the high post at you a little bit more. They certainly post up at the block, but they have a different high-low look. They run a little bit of the Princeton stuff and some actions off of that.
Ethan and then Dargan.
Hi, Coach. I was just wondering if you could update us on your 3 injured players, Chastity, Emily, and Tegan.
Yeah. Well, I haven't talked to our trainer yet, and it's not coach speak. They're truly day to day when they're going to be released. And there's different testing and protocols. So I haven't got that yet. I think that we're still a little bit of ways with Tegan's, recovery. But I'm a little bit, crossing my fingers about Chat and Emily. But it really is day to day, and I don't have anything yet has come through my desk, or our trainer hasn't stopped up yet.
Dargan, go ahead.
I was just real quick. Any of those 3 practiced at all any this week?
No.
And then the other thing, so this would be something you probably wouldn't have to worry about with a veteran team, but with a young team like in this kind of awkward start of Big Ten play, do you treat it like this is the start of Big Ten play, or is it just another big non-conference game? How does that? How have you?
I think that is kind of my biggest concern. And then it's even unique. Tomorrow with our charter flight out, we have to leave early, and so we have to practice at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and that's just a lot different. Practicing at 8 a.m. and we got to be on the hop because We have to get to the airport. It's the only time that the charter window, when you go out and are landing in Newark, there's just a lot of condensed air traffic. So everything's just a little different. And getting them to understand, we've only played one true road game at Northern Iowa. And, we've had some years at Rutgers, granted somewhere in the Vivian era, but, they're close, right? And getting them to understand, because we're more young than we're older, and getting the older kids to translate how difficult it is to win on the road. That is a concern. I've been talking about it. I definitely haven't made it just another road game. I've talked about the excitement and the importance of going 1-0. Not all is won or lost, but certainly the games that are on paper that land in your favor, you definitely want to take care of those. But I don't know, I think Rutgers is so new pieces that, it just, it'll be fun. I hope it's fun in the win column, but I am a little concerned. That's not anybody's favorite of how with these expansive conferences now, we have to throw in a conference game in the middle of everything else. Because no matter how much people want to talk about what we did in Florida or the excitement of Iowa State or, the end of the non-con with Connecticut, every coach will tell you the most important game in your whole schedule before Christmas is the conference one. So yeah, I'm a little geeked on that one.
Jeff.
Just kind of piggybacking on that. Is it more of a challenge to play a team like this, or a Wisconsin or a Purdue, or somebody that's probably supposed to finish toward the bottom, right away when they're fresh and they're 0-0, 7-2, feeling good about themselves? Is that a lot harder now than it would be when maybe the season has kind of broken them a little bit?
Yeah, I do think that. And I think, Robin's doing such a great job. You bring up Wisconsin. You're working so hard. Everybody in the beginning, there's just so much hope and promise. Everybody, right, in the country is you lose a couple you shouldn't. You're like, maybe you're 500, you got time, right? Maybe you're 8-0 and wow, we can take steps. But I think you're exactly right. And, that's another thing, Dargan, you asked about the young kids. So I'm getting the young kids, to try to just understand how much harder this game is going to be and what the environment is like at Rutgers. It's their rec center. It's a unique, I like the arena myself, but it's another different thing to navigate. But then your older players, trying to get them to understand that it's never business as usual, right? So I think there's two things in play is, we've got to just go there and take care of business, because I do anticipate this to be much more challenging than what I think it looks like it should be on paper or the past history. Because I just think they do have a good bounce to them right now. And I think, do you want to play someone you don't have to get their attention? If you were playing a Michigan right now, or, an Ohio State or whatever, that might be a little bit easier. But I have liked our mentality of our team this year. They've usually brought it. Few moments were a little flat. A couple games I haven't liked the overall outcome of just where we were mentally edgy. But I suspect that when we get there, we'll be ready to go.
Matt.
I just want to ask about Kylie Feuerbach. She's really stepped off offensively, especially against Fairfield. What have you seen from her in her final season so far?
Yeah, if we could get, maybe not have to get that high of 3-point percentage every game, but if we could get her to be more of a threat, boy, that would really make us a lot harder to guard and make us, I think, just another step of could be really, really good. It's one game, right? But what I've seen of Kylie is, even without that offense, I said this on my radio show last night, is so many people always want to, I kind of want you to always play the kids that score, right? Or we always get all the glamour, the scorers. But Kylie is so steady. Our defense, she's such a good defensive anchor. Our offense, actually, she understands it. She runs it pretty well. She's been taking care of the ball. So she's doing a lot of great things. And I've just tried to get her to take pressure off that offense. And she works so hard. She's in the gym so much that, a lot of, I would tell her, most of them, they're the best defenders in their minds. And I think that I'm hopeful that this breakout game that she had will kind of release, all the what ifs in her mind. But her work ethic is great, unparalleled. So to see her have that game, I was just so happy for her. But if we can get her to do a little bit more consistently that type of performance, that will make all of our jobs a lot easier.
Kyle.
You mentioned some of the height that Rutgers has. Obviously, they don't have like the obvious 6'7" type player or something like that, like a Lauren Betts. But you mentioned across the board they have height. I don't know if you know this. This is the tallest across the board starting lineup that you faced since USC last season. Just what challenges does that present when you're going against them at their defensive side? Because obviously, 6'3" at the small forward, power forward, center, and then even some bigger guards. Just what challenges does that present when they're on defense?
Yeah, and that is what concerns me, because they have good pressure on the ball. And with even if you're playing ourselves, but our male practice squad is not that big, right? So you're not going to really know what it feels like until you get there. And we played that before. I didn't know they were the tallest, but when I started to study them, I'm like, holy cow. That just, when they're on the ball, they're just so longer. If you're trying to get the ball inside, I mean, they're just going to be their reach, right? So that is going to feel differently, and you can't do anything to mimic that until we get into the game. So I just think the entry passes, I think, are going to be a little more challenging. I think just their length and what they can just take up with their presence. So we're going to have to be pretty efficient with how we run the offense. We're going to have to use some serious ball fakes. And most of the time, with the exception of the Western Illinois game, with how young we are, is, with the exception of Kylie and Taylor, right? But everybody else learning the system and trying to make those entry passes, we've done solidly with taking care of the ball. And Western Illinois was a weird anomaly. But we're going to have to be efficient with that ball. And we're going to have to, I've been trying to work on our passing and the angles of which we enter it. And that pressure is going to feel a little bit differently for them too.
Ethan.
Coming out of the Fairfield game, looking at your 3-point defense, do you just kind of go, well, we're not going to face a team that's going to shoot the 3 ball as much or as well as Fairfield did, or do you try and make some changes in your 3-point defense?
That just is what they do. They're leading the nation in 3-point shooting. Every game's a different race. I wish we would have defended that. It's what they do. I'm just glad we got the end result. You're asking your 4 and 5 player to really defend guards, and that's really hard to do. It's why it's not enjoyable to play the Drakes and the Northern Iowas and the Fairfields, but they prepare you in a different way for what you could face if you're fortunate enough to make the NCAA tournament. They just make you a little bit better because you have to you have to defend and win a different way. So I suspect that Fairfield will continue doing that. Yes, we have shored up some of the things, some of the actions that we could have handled better. I could have probably made an adjustment in the fourth quarter and wouldn't have Ava or Big in there. That's a decision you make as a coach. Is she rebounds so well and she's a target on that offensive end that they don't have. So I was trying to get her in that fourth quarter when we both went nuts offensively, right? What was it, 30-27 in that fourth quarter against Fairfield? I probably could have done a little better had I put a guard in there. But I was confident that we were going to be fine. So, yeah, I saw some areas that were glaring, but it's also what they do, right? So you just have to know that, store it. We've worked on some things, but you got to turn it over. And now the way that Rutgers plays is so different than how Fairfield plays. That is, now I got to focus on the actions of how these guys get open and get their threes is a whole lot different than what Fairfield did. So it's not apples to apples. So I'll store that. We worked on the generals, but now we're more focused on stopping Rutgers.
Dargan.
I know injuries are never what you want to deal with, especially when they're clustered together like this. But what has maybe been one or two things that have been advantageous about, what you guys have done with them out, and has, in a roundabout way made it easier, some of those substitutions and lineup fitting that, combinations you maybe wouldn't see if those players were healthy?
Yeah, I think, you just always have to look at the positives, right? Whenever you get thrown a little adversity. But I think the confidence that Strimlo has gotten handling, the point guard position, starting in Florida. And then it did open up where then Addie Deal, although she was coming a little bit even before we went to Florida, but then, she was able to get a few more minutes and then had some success with that. So those two, especially getting game minutes and handling different pressure situations. So that's been really, really good. Now, though, when you get a Chit Chat back, or when Emily Rodriguez comes back and Tegan, now you have to form your team a little bit differently again. And everybody, once again, is going to have to realign roles. And that it is what it is when you're a kid that has unfortunately gotten hurt or had a procedure, then you are a little bit behind. And so then you got to kind of, push everybody and stay patient. So there'll continue to be a little forming when we get these kids back. I do not suspect we'll get them all back at the same time. So we'll probably get one back and maybe 1.5, right? And then maybe another 2 or 3 days, 5 days, we'll get the third one back. So we'll have to, again, learn those subbing patterns and role acceptances, right? But I do think the positive was that we got a lot of experience and we've won. We found ways to win. So that has given the whole team like, okay, we got that, this next person in philosophy. So that's what I've been pleased the most about, is that we've been able to do this, especially without Chit Chat, because I do think she's a pretty special player on both sides of the ball.
All right, guys. Anybody else has anything? We're all good. All right. Thanks, Jen.
All right. Thank you, guys. God bless you. Stay warm. Go Hawks.